Hi there, I'm Rich and welcome to Ram's Little Workshop. I want to talk to you today about a finishing technique that used to be rather common back 70, 80, 100 years ago, but is hardly ever seen today. And that's the use of paste wood filler. Now, paste wood filler is a product you can buy. It comes sometimes in a semi-liquid, kind of a thick liquid form, and sometimes as what I'm using in a dry powder. It's mixed with water and it's applied to the wood, and what it does is fill in the grain. So obviously it only works with open grain woods like oak. You try and use it with maple, you're not going to get much out of it. But what it does is it fills in the open grain, and it can make that grain more pronounced or even change the character of it by giving it a different color. I'm going to be using a walnut color paste wood filler on this little cheese board, which goes nicely with it because I've got oak and walnut together. So I'm going to darken up the grain in the walnut to more closely match that which is in the walnut. I could, doing something different, go with, say, a red colored paste wood filler, and it would really change the character of the wood quite a bit. So it really depends on the effect you're trying to use or you're trying to achieve. Some of the old craftsmen would go through some pretty wild stuff, especially for instruments or really specialty pieces. So let me show you how this is used. Because I'm using the powdered version of a paste wood filler, I've had to mix it with water, and I've just got a little cup here with it mixed with water. I've actually used this cup before. One of the nice things about this powdered version is that if you don't use it up, just let it dry in the cup, break it up and use it again. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just brush it onto the surface of my little cheese board here. Doesn't really have to be neat. It doesn't have to be real heavy either. Well, all I'm trying to do is get enough that it fills in that open grain. The only place I'm really being careful is around the edges. I don't want to have like one place where I've gone all the way down the side with it, and then the rest of it is just barely going over the rounded edge. So I'm trying to keep that somewhat consistent. Now, before applying this, I put a coat of sanding sealer on this wood, and I did that so that it wouldn't soak into all the grain. Really, all I wanted to do is to soak into the open grain. So now we just got to let it sit here and dry. Now that our paste wood filler has had some time to dry, and it's not perfectly dry, but it's pretty much so, we want to rub off the excess. Now I'm just using an old towel for this. The absolute best thing to use for it is a piece of old burlap. But I just don't happen to have any burlap sitting here in the shop today. So I'm going to use what I've got. Now you could use pretty much anything. You can do this with a card scraper. You can do it sanding. Really what we're trying to do is get off the excess. So whatever is going to do that. All we want to be left with is the part of the paste wood filler that is down in the grain. If we compare now this grain here to this grain here, see how it's darker? That's what we're after. We're making that grain stand out more. And I still need to do some more work on this, but we can see that we're bringing that grain out. Even when we compare it to the other side, see that's a lot more kind of orange gold looking. This is more of a brown look to it, and it definitely gives it a different effect. That's the purpose of paste wood filler. So the whole idea of using paste wood filler is to create effects in the wood that just aren't naturally there. My wife, for example, doesn't really like the orangish sort of look you sometimes get with red oak. And by using the paste wood filler, I tone that down and bring out more of the browns, which she really likes. We both like oak, but it's the coloration, okay? It can also do things where your grain just isn't really obvious. Now, these two bowls were turned from the same tree, wood from the same tree. If you look at the grain pattern, and that's probably the most obvious bit of grain on this one, it's not real pronounced, but if you look at it on this one, it's very pronounced. And the reason is that I used the same paste wood filler, that same walnut colored paste wood filler on this bowl when I was finishing up the turning process before I put the finish on. So there's a lot of great things you can do with paste wood filler. It's just a matter of getting in there and experimenting a little bit. So why don't you give it a try? And we'll see you again sometime here soon on Ram's Little Workshop. Have a great day. Make some sawdust.